Welcome to the VET S.O.S podcast. Remember, don't drown the sea of transition. Grab the VET S.O.S Lifeline. Excited to be sitting down with Gene Moran, founder of Capital Integration and an author. My wording is not correct there. You've seen him on a couple of our other shows. Looking forward to jumping into this conversation and learning even more about the work he's doing to support our veteran community and to help out veterans in general. Today I'm here, with my co-host or co-star for the new Grumpy Old Man movie reboot. How you doing today, Keith?
Oh, see, you're throwing curveballs at me, Sean. I don't like that. You're taking things off of the show notes. I'm good. That's all I got. Just glad to be able to hang out with people smarter than me, which isn't a very high bar to set. But yeah, I just skimmed the footnotes and apparently missed that question. So I'm doing good, Sean. How are you, jerk?
I'm doing good. Yeah, it's not in the show notes. I put it straight in the teleprompter. I had to throw you a curveball. All right, let's jump into this one. We got Gene Moran with us, founder and president of Capital Integration. He is an expert on federal defense lobbying, measuring his clients' results in billions of dollars. Gene's policy initiatives have been implemented by Congress, the president, and the executive branch. His pursuit of innovation has garnered multiple accolades, including being named twice as a top lobbyist by the National Institute for Lobbying and Ethics, the Society for Advancing Consulting's Consultant of the Year, inductee in the $1 Million Consulting Hall of Fame, and multiple times as a top-performing lobbying firm by Bloomberg government. He is a published author of 7 books, university professor at FSU, and previously served as a captain in the United States Navy, where he commanded both a cruiser and a destroyer. You've done quite a lot so far, Gene. How are you doing today?
It's a work in progress. Good to be with you, Sean and Keith.
Well, we're excited to have you on here. I know you've been on a couple of the other shows, and they've just been fantastic conversations. So really excited to, jump into this again and continue to learn more about what you're doing and all the great things you have your hands in. So as we get started here, let's go ahead and start with your military transition. Tell us how that went, coming out of the Navy.
Thanks for having me. I tell you, I feel like I had a pretty unusually easy transition in that I had done several tours in Washington. It's at sea or in D.C. is where we serve in the Navy. And I gained a lot of Washington expertise specific to engagement with Congress that the corporate world finds pretty valuable. And it's hard to get unless you sort of work in that world. It's a learn by doing kind of thing, not too unlike the military, but because I was carrying some of those skills of who and how to communicate with Congress, there were corporate opportunities when my time came, and so I was fortunate enough to have some choice in where I might go to work. But I took a corporate role as a corporate lobbyist in a Washington office of one of the large defense companies. At the time, they were DRS Technologies. They're now Leonardo DRS. And I stayed there for 5 years. And I'm happy to drill into that any way you like, but it was relatively smooth for me.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, we don't hear a lot of smooth transition stories. A lot of people have struggled, and so it's great to hear that things worked out pretty well for you.
So if I could just sort of dive in a little bit, what did happen though was maybe a bit of a delayed reaction in that it took me a couple of years to recognize that maybe the fit wasn't as great as it looked on arrival. And that's fairly common. It's very difficult to see a culture from the outside unless you know a lot of people on the inside. And at the time I was in a corporate setting, the corporation itself was going through a lot of change. It had been acquired by an international company, and when you do that, there are continuous reorganizations that take place. And I found a few years into it that I wasn't alone in recognizing that, hey, is this all there is, or what else could I be doing? And I found that my peers at other companies were having similar thoughts. They may not have seen an escape route the way I did, and I'm happy to talk about that. But landing in the right place on the first try is pretty unusual, I think.
But let's dive into that escape route, because you hear a lot of people talk about, trying to find the next thing or not happy where they are or whatever. So if you're able to identify that, what are some things that people should be looking at, if they are trying to find a way out?
Yeah. Well, I think in terms of the culture that you probably want to be a part of is one where you feel like people are aligned to a common objective and that you're working together. Sometimes that's the case, but I think the the profit and loss configuration puts pressures on people that you don't have on active duty, and it can bring out behaviors that may or may not be attractive or wanted in a corporate setting. And I'm not speaking specifically at my company, but most companies recognize that these tensions exist about making a number and meeting that number. I had a role where my job was to represent a company to Capitol Hill in a variety of programs. As a result of that work, I had exposure to many, many defense verticals of the big platforms. So ships, submarines, F-35, you name the big platform. I had exposure to some of the companies that were in those supply chain verticals. And when the leaders of those companies would come to town for, let's say, a supplier day, it became apparent to me that the companies that didn't have Washington offices really didn't have great information about what was happening. And it surprised me how little some senior leaders of companies knew about the environment into which they were selling. And that was an eye opener for me to recognize that I could help other companies navigate this process where they don't have the expense of a full up Washington office and they hire it out as a third party. And it's a fairly common model, but I didn't recognize it until I was sort of in the moment. And that was a window to an escape hatch, as I would call it, to see that, hey, I could go do this on my own and run my own thing. That was 13 years ago.
Nice. So not really a uncommon theme, right, Keith? I mean, we see people, either changing their plan and transition or looking to change careers, change routes, what have you. So something that we've a lot of us deal with in one way, shape, or form.
Yeah, no, exactly. And this is a really unique topic for me. I've never done much research into it. I work in the federal government. I work with lobbyists and stuff like that, and so I'm really kind of curious, and I've never had the entrepreneurial spirit. So, but I talk to people all the time that are looking to kind of get into that world. So I'm really curious, like in your book, Make Your Move, you talk about helping people navigate Washington and big dollar decisions. And I just curious, what's the biggest lie that veterans and service members and folks tell themselves about the government funding and influence? And what is that biggest lie? What would you tell them to try to dismantle that?
Yeah, I think it's a common perception and misperception, in fact, that the biggest companies always win. They are well positioned to win often, and they do bring home 50% of the opportunity. And by the biggest companies, I mean 5 companies bring home 30%. 45 companies bring home 50% of the acquisition opportunities. But the same playing field is available to any company. And I bring small, medium, and large companies into that playing field regularly and compete and win. And I think a related myth is that the best product doesn't always win. It's the best connected and best understood product that wins. And when a company gets best aligned with the government's real buying process, those are the companies that can win over and over. So we see the large companies winning because they have full-time staff assigned to every office in the process along the way. And, I primarily lobby, and most of that is lobbying Congress. A lot of companies don't think that they have access to communicating with Congress, when in fact they do. And Congress plays a very big role in how government funding is distributed. And to ignore that is just a big misstep. So I gave you a couple of misperceptions there. I've done deep research on the defense executive's understanding of lobbying. I mean, my PhD in public policy is grounded in that premise that defense executives fundamentally don't understand the playing field on which they're selling.
I think that may be a true thing for a lot of fields, not really understanding the playing field they're on.
Well, you know, for I think for any vet, something that distinguishes us is that we don't lack confidence, and we'll try anything because we've been put in positions where you have to make things work, even if you don't have the perfect tools, and so we'll, given enough time, we'll figure something out. It may not be the ideal solution, but that is not the best way to work in a profit and loss environment. That can be some expensive learning that takes place, and some learn while they're in one company that they turn out to not like or to eventually leave, and so that who's paying for that expensive learning, you need to be aware of that.
We can accomplish a lot with a knee tool and duct tape.
Well, we generally don't give up, right? We'll keep at it until either we physically can't or the problem has been removed.
So one of the things I wanted to make sure we bring up is, through all your work, writing the book, the work you do with the consulting, you also have a podcast, Make Your Move podcast. What is like your target with that, and what are you trying to do through the podcast?
Yeah, it started as kind of a passion project, and part of just adjacent marketing of my business. As you might expect, many of my clients and their employees are veterans, and so there's a natural kind of referral process that unfolds in any veteran network. People want to work with who they know, like, and trust, and there's a high degree of trust that comes with the moniker of veteran. But I recognized that there were a lot of different ways to succeed as a post active duty veteran, and I wanted to offer a channel where people could tell their story so that others who are on the cusp of transition might learn from them. We've recorded over 100 episodes. We have guests from all services, not Space Force, I guess, because they were just coming online, but all the other services are represented, officer, enlisted. You name the community, there's probably somebody there. And the idea was just to have a repository of positive stories about people who figured out how to make it work for them. I think some people defer the transition timeline because they're a little uncertain about where do they want to go. They don't know how viable or hireable they might be, and they may stay on active duty too long or longer than they needed to, and they could have made a smoother transition. Sometimes people just need to hear one person's story or hear a spark, just like you're doing. You're providing examples that people can relate to in different ways, and that was the idea.
Oh, I completely get that. And Keith, you and I have talked about that numerous times, how just the power of the story and the stories we hear and what people have gone through is just huge for the people coming behind us.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like, I'm so naive to this part of the industry, if you will. Like, hearing the stories is even because I've got a few friends now that are in that space and, in the contracting world and big, that sort of thing. And I've always heard about the tags, right? Woman-owned business, veteran-owned business, and how that can help and that sort of thing. So to a service member who's transitioning, like, that has this vision, like, I want to get into this area, I want to get into this world. What's the first thing you would encourage them to do?
There's actually a few things. I would say most veterans don't think big enough about what they might be able to do or build on their own. If, let's say, they want to go out on their own, they tend to start with what they know. They may try to translate their last job on active duty into something in the commercial world, but that may not be the best place for them. It may be that they have another skill set that hasn't been fully developed, or that just needs a place to flourish. So thinking bigger about what you could do, and sort of how much money you could make, where do you want to live? You don't have to just stick to your own network. And a common identifier that I see in veterans is that their networks, while geographically very diverse, they're fairly narrow when you look at the universe of the possible. and it's hard to see that when you're on active duty. And it's even hard to see that in the early years when you leave active duty, until you start to really interact with your community or with other industries, and you start to see how other things work. My time in Washington has given me a lot of exposure to a lot of different industries, and so I've seen some of the differences and cultural norms that exist in, let's just say, software or insurance or pharmaceuticals. They're different, and it may be that somebody could thrive in those spaces if they were only given the opportunity.
No, that's absolutely right, and that's a great way to look at it when you start thinking about your network and all the things that are out there, all the possibilities, all the different fields, careers, areas, and then what your network actually is. Because I think a lot of us, if you sit down and look at it, at least the first year or two maybe is probably very heavy veteran and veteran or our friends from the military, and then as we grow and expand out, then we're probably looking at different areas as we branch into them. But man, yeah, that there's so much I think that networking way we could actually improve on.
Well, another big learning point for me as I was out for a couple of years, and some people say that you come up against the 2 or 3 year mark and you're sort of looking for that next set of orders. I came to recognize that I was not growing in the corporate role the way I was growing while on active duty. Each time we go to another assignment, we're typically doing something new. We have to learn something new. We have to go back to a school to get some additional skills. Uh, we don't often do the same thing twice or two times in a row. There's there's some growth and learning required. The eye opener for me was that in corporate, that new learning and creating of growth opportunities really falls to the individual. And I recognized that I wasn't investing in myself in the early years, and the company wasn't sending me to whatever school. It's just not done. It's very rare for that to happen in corporate. Maybe for like an MBA program or something, for an early level executive training program, maybe. But in general, that sort of learning and continuing education doesn't happen unless you make it happen. And when I went out on my own, I seriously invested in getting consulting coaching, advancing my academic underpinning of the world I was working in. I came to a point where I recognized that, hey, I had enough knowledge in my experiences to write books about what I was doing to help lay the case for other people. We talked about Make Your Move, but I have some books that are specific to working in DC and working in lobbying that are meant to help executives better understand their own environment. And the fulfillment that comes from that sort of investment in yourself to get better and be better and allow you to think bigger and make more money and serve more people, that fulfillment comes close to the feeling of fulfillment of active duty.
Yeah, that's my biggest fear, Keith. I'm coming up this year. 26 will be the 3-year mark. So it's like, well, what's going to happen? Am I going to get antsy? Is it time to move? So it's going to be interesting this year.
Well, there's a lot of ways to get fulfillment, right?
Yeah.
You can volunteer with other organizations. I didn't mean to step on you there, Keith, but
no, absolutely.
There's a lot of ways to give back and to get to do fulfilling things.
Yeah, that's something I tell a lot of transition service members too, right? Like we can do anything, right? And we have a lot of different passions, and more often than not, when we're coming out, we want to do it all, right? Like I want to be an instructor / law enforcement officer / teacher. I'm trying to project manager. I want to do it all, and not there aren't jobs that just do it all like that. But I always tell folks, hey, yeah, volunteering especially is a great way to scratch some of those itches. I always wanted to stay in the physical security world. So I volunteer with a nonprofit that trains security teams for houses of worship. Doesn't pay a cent to me, but it fulfills me immensely. So you mentioned something too about fulfillment, which resonated with me. In my world, like where I've come from growing up, like I'm just gonna put it blunt. Lobbyists and lawyers like are 2 4-letter words sometimes. Like people think of things in the government, they hear lobbyists, they're like, oh god. So can you kind of demystify that for our listeners so that they truly understand how much of a
I get
go ahead.
I get this one a lot, and it's there's some tribal myth and folklore out there that is grounded in some actions of a few bad apples. I would offer that in any industry there are people who are working around the rules and trying to get some special advantage. We see it occasionally in the Wall Street and financial world. We're seeing it before our eyes today. If you think about the Magnificent Seven who were standing alongside the president at the inauguration, all those tech leaders, they were on the other side of the ideological line during the last administration, and they aligned themselves with the Biden administration. They move and make financial contributions that are not particularly transparent to influence outcomes that they're trying to achieve. It's reported this week that Amazon Prime, I guess, is doing a documentary on Melania Trump. They've paid $40 million to a sitting first lady to do a documentary that explores 25 days of her life before the inauguration. That's happening right in front of us, and add to that the contributions to the East Wing, the new East Wing. Several financial or corporate contributions are being made in tens and hundreds of millions of dollars are being contributed by companies that have government contracts at stake. Elon Musk was granted tremendous access to the government, and he had interests in government contractual outcomes. None of those sort of activities are covered by the same sort of scrutiny that lobbying reporting covers. And so lobbyists have to register and report their activities. They have to report the nature of their relationship with the company, how much money that company is paying them, and what they're trying to accomplish on behalf of that company. And every aspect of your life has some organization in Washington representing you. Think of all the veteran services organizations. They are advocacy organizations, and they're trying to achieve better outcomes for their constituencies. The same thing exists in the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the pharmaceutical industry, insurance industry. Every aspect of your life has people that are influencing it. While defense is the largest part of the U.S. federal budget and the biggest part that gets approved every year, defense lobbying ranks number 19 on the list of industries that pay lobbyists. And so some of those others are above. So pharmaceutical, insurance, financial services, just some examples. Of the nearly 1 million defense companies, fewer than 0.5% use lobbyists. That doesn't mean that lobbying is not happening, because everybody knows somebody and people have communications and conversations. The difference between a lobbyist and somebody who just has those conversations is the lobbyist has to report it publicly. And you can look back at my, nearly 20-year career as a lobbyist and see who I've worked for along the way, what they paid me, and what we were pursuing. So it's much more transparent than people know, but the story doesn't get told that way.
Yeah. No, and that's great insight for folks listening. I think it's great. So we are unfortunately at time already, Gene. It flew by, and I hate to see it. So hopefully we get back on the show and dive into some even further issues or things that you're working on. But before we go, how can people get in touch with you? How can they get a hold of your book and reach out?
Yeah, thanks for that. I'm very active on social media. I'm in the public square, as they say. My website is genemoran.com. You can find out all sorts of information about what I do, how I do it, where to get my books. I have course materials available for companies who are selling into the federal government. But as we go out, I just want to congratulate you on your success. Sean and I were at the Veterans in Business Awards recently, and it was great to see him recognized for the effort of this show. And congratulations on what you've built, and here's to your continued success.
Thank you so much, Gene. And yeah, you talk about a room full of just amazing people. Just talking to everybody that was in there and all they were giving back and what they were doing. I was, definitely honored to be nominated, but truly blessed to have won in that room. Very, very excited and excited for the podcast, because it's everybody involved. Keith and all the other co-hosts we've had have been a big part of making this thing special. So thank you for joining us and sharing your story as well.
Great to be with you both.
Yeah, appreciate you, Gene. And Sean does all the work anyway, so I can't take any credit for anything. He literally does it all. I just show up and I'm the face for radio on the show. So, all right,
you're the candy. You're the eye candy.
Yeah, candy. Yeah. So, all right. So yeah, go check out Gene's book, Make Your Move. Check out his podcast, Make Your Move. And on behalf of the entire VET S.O.S family, we want to thank everyone for spending time with us today. It's always great having y'all along for the ride. Don't forget to check out all of our other episodes and keep coming back for more stories, insight, and support from the VET S.O.S crew. If you enjoyed this episode in particular, give it a follow or give us a follow, share the show, tell a friend or two, throw your battle buddies, fire team, shipmates, and wingmen that flotation device that they need in transition so no one drowns in that sea of transition. And as always, remember, grab the VET S.O.S Lifeline.